Hey, today's This Week in Pharmacy, March 27th, 2026, is in dedication to Dr. Eric Geyer, PharmD, who we lost this week in pharmacy. And we wanted to bring attention to him and his I said legend on an Instagram post because really it will lead to some of the things that he's done that will carry on. But I wanted to play this little tribute to him through Instagram. This is from the Doctor of Comedy, Dr. Maurice Shaw, who's actually one of our Pharmacy 50 most influential people. And just listen to this. This is just a very...
When I was first nominated for this, my first thought was kind of like, wow, it's just nice to be able to kind of be recognized for the things you do for patients. If it weren't for them, you wouldn't be there, but they're also the ones who put their trust in you. So it's nice to have that recognition for the work you do and that they trust you so much that they'd even nominate you for an award. Pharmacy has been tough over the past couple of years. The fact that we were relied on so heavily to help end the pandemic, just seeing that we were that accessible and we were relied on that much, not just by our patients, but even by the federal government and state governments to really help end the COVID pandemic, or at least kind of pull it down, is just really awesome and inspiring. Probably one of my most memorable moments actually was this past year while rolling out the vaccines for COVID in some of the nursing homes. There was an older gentleman I was giving the vaccine to, and he asked me specifically kind of what I was looking forward to when we return to normal. And I said, it'd be nice to travel again with my wife. And then he asked me where my favorite place to travel was, and I said, Paris. He kind of looked at me and said, I've been to Paris. And so I asked him, what year did you go to Paris? And he said, 1941. And it kind of dawned on me and gave me this look that, he was a World War II veteran. So I thought it was really cool for me and like people of my generation to be able to protect the greatest generation and our grandparents from this disease that is just ravaging people their age and with their health issues. What it means to me to be a pharmacist is just that you have a duty to really try and help protect people and then do what's right for them, both clinically, financially, and kind of holistically for them as a patient. My favorite part of the day as a pharmacist is honestly anytime I can have a good conversation with somebody about their medication and their health. I can use what I know to help make their lives better. And even if it's only 1% better, it's something we can do in pharmacy that very few other people can do. When I was first nominated.
So Dr. Eric Geyer was recognized as the best of the best by Single Care. And to get such an honor at a national level because he was recognized by people that he has worked with. And then as a fellow podcaster, Eric was an extremely influential podcaster. He had his own independent podcast called the Political Pharmacist Podcast. And he's had some of the best, absolute best episodes in podcasting I've ever heard that were tied into how politics are impacting our pharmacy profession and the insights that he drove, as well as the good questions that he asked from one reporter to the other, from one podcaster to another. Eric was a master of his craft, and he was an advocate and he was a supporter of the start of Pizza Is Not Working, which became, if you see the legacy of how things have gone, has spiraled into Convergence with Maurice Shaw and the accidental pharmacist Shane Jereminsky and Bled to Noe and patient advocacy. Like, this guy was a powerful, powerful change maker, and it wasn't him out there. He was kind of shy, to tell you the truth. I think he was kind of shy, but when he did speak up and he was able to take positions that he believed in, he was going to be a future politician. And we lost him too early this week. And we just wanted to say, from the Pharmacy Podcast Network and from our network and the social media realm and the network that we've all built together, that I just wanted to say rest in peace, Dr. Eric Geyer. And today's TWIRx is dedicated to you. This is March 27th, 2026. And we got to get going. Let's go. Hey there, hey there, hey there. This is TWIRx, Todd Urey, host, founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. So glad that you're here, that you're listening. Share these shows that we cover so many different things happening in our profession, and we're getting so much interaction with our listeners. So if you hear this and you want to promote something that's happening in your sector of pharmacy, we want to build out This Week in Pharmacy and get more expertise and digging down into how pharmacists are changing the world. Hey, this weekend, we're headed to Los Angeles for the American Pharmacists Association's 2026 gathering, Redefining Possible, the 2026 annual meeting and exhibition. This thing's going to be crazy awesome. We're headed out there to Los Angeles. We will be out there. We will be covering this as press. We'd like to give a shout out to Ural Pharma, who is supporting us in getting that press coverage. We shout out to the entire profession going. If you're listening to me, if you're able to hear some of our shows and you want to chime in on something that you're doing to set the stage for the next generation pharmacists and where pharmacy is going as a profession, please chime into our coverage of the APHA 2026. We would love to hear from you. Right after that, we are headed to Dallas, the big state of Texas. We are going to the Pharmacy Owners Pharmacy Profit Summit. This is all about growing profits, the creativity that comes from this show for independent pharmacy owners is just incredible. It's all application. It's everything they talk about is already ready to be applied. It's not kind of just a brainstorm. It's really digging into what's working to drive profit. We will have a guest today, Jonathan Adley, one of the founders of CEO of TJM Labs, which is sponsoring the segment on TWIRx today. We just want to shout you out. We can't wait to see you and work with you. This week in pharmacy throughout the network, Sex PharmD is back. Not sure if you knew, Dr. Nadia Archambault is back with Sex PharmD. Once again, pharmacist student, someone in the business of pharmacy. If there is any sector of sexual health and the ideas that you have, please bring them to us. We like to work within our networks and strengthen other pharmacists in this space. And then digging down into the study on soda, and we call it POP in Pittsburgh. But the study that says that soda boosts testosterone. This is a new episode from RX Rated. You're really going to enjoy this episode. It's fun to listen to. We love those guys on the network. They do an incredible job as podcasters. Very entertaining. We also heard from Ural Pharma. Had an opportunity to talk with the CEO, Stephen Beckman. They're doing things differently at Ural. They really are. You've never seen a generics company do what they're starting to do with the kinds of outreach that how they're doing schools of pharmacy and veteran support and pain management and new ways of controlling pain and levothyroxine for the thyroid world, and the evidence, some of the studies that we're able to reference through some of their guidance. It's just been wonderful to work with them. Shout out to fellow marketer, someone I've known I'm starting to feel old. 20 plus years, geez. Nicole McClure, founder of Finch Marketing, Marketing Vitals. I got to talk with her on her show, and we dug into how important, I know this is going to sound simple, but you have to listen up, how important your website is and the next generation of website interaction and what a website means today did not mean what it meant when websites came out. Websites have changed in their meaning and their positioning and your branding and your validity, your accuracy and your trust. You might want to think about upgrading your website. And we're going to talk more about that. And then Pharmacy Profit Summit. If you want to get a sneak peek on the Profit Summit, listen up to the episode we did through TWIRx. This podcast, we've loved working on this podcast with TWIRx. Those are good people, really care about their independent community pharmacies. And we got to talk with the one and only Lisa Fast, Dr. Fast, in previewing the event, Pharmacy Profit Summit. Want to get into some news. This is blowing my mind. Want to just reference, this is fizorg.news. I'm sorry, fizz.org news. And this just came out today. Implantable living pharmacy procedures. I'm sorry. Implantable living pharmacy produces multiple drugs inside the body. And the concept is putting an implanted device into your body that if you had some chronic condition, and they were saying things like HIV, GLP-1s and peptides and all this ability to inject this into your body on the fly to kind of moderate and bring back data. But this is blowing my mind. Imagine a pharmacist building a online connection, an app or something, that you build a client base of patients that need your help, whether it's a specialty disease or whether it's diabetes or whether, no matter what it is, they can hire you and you can help monitor through all of this dispensing or this automated dispensing and this implantable reader. This is fascinating. Definitely look this up on This Week in Pharmacy. Hey, from Drug Topics, it says research shows motivations behind the pharmacy workforce exodus. And this digs into the state of our nation in the United States and how there are a lot of pharmacies wanting to get out of pharmacy. This is based on national chains, mostly grocery stores, big box. But guess what? The independent pharmacies were not facing this. So it's real interesting. The 16,000, 17,000 independents throughout the country, they're doing just the opposite. They're trying to grow. They're trying to recover from being shut down through some of the PBM shenanigans. And they're the ones that want to grow. And the other side of this and the collapse of much of our pharmacies throughout the country and the big box side of it, that was much more stackable, and an independent gets to pivot specific to their own community. It's their own community style. It's their own business style. It's their own flair. 26 pieces of flair, making sure that you just stand out in your community. This should teach us something as a profession to put more investment into personalization of pharmacy and pharmacy care delivery. And I see some of the hospital systems doing that, starting to get real personalized with follow-up in care that includes telehealth, it includes interaction, it includes texting. And we're going to see more and more of that personalization and using technology to get closer to our patients and not further away. And AI will be part of that. Hey, up next on This Week in Pharmacy news, something just came out in Pharmacy Times. It says navigating BTK inhibitors in mantle cell lymphoma and safety sequencing and evolving pharmacist roles. What I really like about this article and the excitement that we feel, shout out to Dr. Grace Biek, PharmD. It's an opportunity to dial into the super specifics, and I see Board of Specialties expanding based on the knowledge of pharmacists in lung disease or some blood disease or women's health or whatever it is, to really be able to become an expert and a referenceable expert in your healthcare, whatever your community or your hospital system or specialty or the world of our representation from our pharma divisions with our MSLs or medical science liaisons. They're now being looked at as thought leaders in spaces with the blogs that they do and with social media and with podcasting. Got to keep out there. It's all part of coming back to Eric Geyer, Dr. Geyer, he stood up, like he stood pharmacy straight up, and it was always there. It was always part of, his interconnections to what he was doing and how he was supporting others. And yeah. So, hey, we are excited about an announcement. Finch Marketing and the Pharmacy Podcast Network are joining forces, and we're going to be doing some coverage together to get more out and more communications out on the evolving role of our specialty pharmacists and how specialty pharmacy is really on fire. It's a fire of opportunity for pharmacy to grow. And when you think of that, you'll be surprised that 50% of what's happening in specialty pharmacy is really drawn towards specifically how the pharmacist is where the money's coming from, the expertise where that's connecting from. And then there's a splattering of technology and processes and GPOs and drug distribution and payment, getting things paid for. But the Super Bowl of specialty pharmacy is happening the end of April, and we'll be covering that. It's Access to Pharmacy 2026, the Assembia trade show. We love going there, but this will be a very unique coverage to get more oomph and more coverage in the space of reporting and engagement through Nicole McClure, founder of Finch Marketing. Excited about that. Excited about you listening to today's interviews. We have 3 special interviews, and we really just want to thank everybody that has reached out this week to each other, supporting each other, reaching out to other pharmacists who knew Eric Geyer, and how special I've seen a lot of the pharmacy profession come together to say goodbye to Eric and give him our greatest of respects. But very sad, but we're excited about APHA and coming together in Los Angeles. If you're out there, please look me up. Please let us know if you have any ideas for, once again, the future of pharmacy and what you're doing to be part of that. I want to hear your stories. I love your stories. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Hey, we'll be right back with TJM Labs.
As frontline healthcare providers, pharmacists like you understand the importance of personalized care, especially in acute pain management. Ural Pharma is dedicated to providing high-quality, generic products tailored to meet your patient's needs. The company aims to serve a diverse range of patient populations, including athletes recovering from intense training, weekend warriors managing minor injuries, and those seeking a practical and mess-free option for acute pain management. Keep Ural in your toolbox of pain management options and join the ranks of pharmacists leading the way in personalized care. To learn more about Ural Pharma and its products, including full prescribing information, boxed warnings, and important safety information, visit uralpharma.com. That's YARAL pharma.com, and connect with them on LinkedIn.
Hey, welcome back to This Week in Pharmacy. I have a special guest that came into the studio at the last minute. We got to stop doing this last minute stuff. But I like it, Jonathan. I like talking with you.
Yeah, same here, Todd.
Hey, Pennsylvania Pharmacists Association annual meeting. Thanks so much for your insights on that 3-part series. You did an amazing job, really getting a lot of feedback in listener clicks and listener through. We are preparing this weekend for another special event that really centers around revenue generation and new profits for independent community pharmacy. And I'm so glad that TJM Labs is going. This is the Pharmacy Profit Summit 2026 in Dallas. Jonathan, why are you excited to attend this event?
Yeah, so this is a great event. Actually, the first conference I went to as the CEO of TGM Labs was the Pharmacy Profit Summit. It is near and dear to my heart. Last time I went, we were a small company. We just had a lot of informal conversation, and it was extremely successful. This time around, I'm giving a talk called AI or Die. It sounds scary, but we just want people to show up. It's not, yeah, it's not that scary. Yeah, I'm excited for it because it is, I believe, one of the best conferences where you really feel the pharmacy community.
Well, you look good in a cowboy hat too. If you're
Yeah.
watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn Live, you see Jonathan Adley in his black cowboy hat. It looked like you could be a U.S. Marshal in that picture.
Yeah, that's an AI generated photo. I think, Lisa Fast is probably the best pharmacy marketer out there, and she does a great job getting people attention. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to be there. We're going to actually sit down. We're going to do an interview with you or a member of your team for the coverage of that event, which is quite important to us. We have lots of questions. Definitely want to let the listeners know there's a special episode coming from This Week in Pharmacy that is going to feature not only Jonathan and what TJM Labs is doing, but also a client of TJM Labs to really give us some sticky testimony as to how this really applies to the business of pharmacy.
awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it, Todd.
Looking forward to you too. Thanks for stopping by, TWIRx. We'll see you in Dallas.
Thank you.
Feeling lost with the complexities of pharmacy accounting?
In pharmacy today, there's so many different, variables and issues that impact the pharmacy books, records, accounting, the profitability of the store, so forth. There's different components of pharmacy that have its own nuances from an accounting standpoint. And so it's tricky. There's no doubt about it.
Ready to take your pharmacy to the next level but don't know where to start? Sykes & Company is here to help. Introducing the RX Assessment. With the RX Assessment, the pharmacy CPAs and advisors at Sykes will do a deep dive into your accounting and tax situation and give you the action steps you need to take your pharmacy to the next level.
If you're interested in, working with a team who understands the industry and how the accounting and tax should really be in a pharmacy, this is your chance to get a under the hood check of what's going on and getting the feedback of any issues or concerns or, again, things we think you're doing really well with.
Get the financial checkup your pharmacy needs and head over to sykes-cpa.com or call 252-482-7644.
Hey, welcome to This Week in Pharmacy. My name is Todd Urey, host of TWIRx. It's March 27th, 2026. It's Friday. I'm working this weekend. I got to go to the American Pharmacists Association annual event. It's the Super Bowl of the pharmacy profession. So this is a celebration episode of someone in healthcare who has been disrupting healthcare through his initiatives and his understanding, his pull of knowledge and directives from the world of the pharmaceutical industry. I was so excited to have Chuck on my show from Disruptive Dialogue. And by the way, you can find Chuck Melendi from his website, which is disruptivedialogue.org. Chuck, welcome to TWIRx.
Thanks, Todd. Looking forward to it and excited to have a conversation with the Podfather. Love the nickname.
The RX Podfather. Yeah,
That's right.
I don't know who the Podfather would be of all things podcast. I think it's like the guy who was probably like our first podcaster back in 2006. But I can definitely take the crown of RX Podfather for sure.
Love it. Well, thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Enjoy your podcasts and the guests that you've had on. And I'm just excited to be on and chat with you a little bit.
Well, thank you. I mentioned Disruptive Dialogue and your mission and what you've done and the disarray and the dysfunction that you noticed in the healthcare world. And it was all centered around your understanding of how the patient wasn't part of many of the conversations. And the patient's the most important part and the most important person in healthcare. And you're speaking from the heart. You're speaking from experience. So right out of the gate, probably most of our listeners on This Week in Pharmacy are a bunch of pharmacists, pharmacy owners, pharmacy technicians. I want you to give them some of your background and why I'm so excited to have you here today.
Absolutely. So, First off, I've been in healthcare for, gosh, over 35 years, back in the early 90s. And, I've done everything from, I used to be an orthopedic implant rep. So I was doing devices and hips and knees in the hospital, started my own medical equipment and supply business in the mid 90s and sold that. And then got into big pharma. And in 2000, joined Johnson & Johnson. A little known drug at the time that we launched was Remicade. And was there for 25 years, did everything from, and seeing pharmacists are your main audience, they'll understand I was in medical affairs, medical education, sales, marketing. I actually lived in Europe for 2 years, working on Remicade with Schering-Plough across 17 countries. And then the last probably 17 years, half that time was negotiating drug prices for Johnson & Johnson with insurers and PBMs. And then the last 8 years was on our policy and advocacy team, working with medical societies, pharmacy associations, employer coalitions, our lobbyists trying to get legislation around patient access across the finish line. And you said, it comes from the heart. It really does. I wasn't playing. I should still be working for J&J. It didn't work out with my plans, but, when you sit at these tables and you're negotiating, or you're up in a state capitol and you hear the other side, the insurers, the hospitals, the PBMs get up there and literally lie through their teeth. Mm. And when you work for a large corporation, you cannot say what you know unless it goes through our compliance teams. You get in hot water. And so I was getting really frustrated when I would negotiate for drug pricing. It was all about how much in rebates we would give and kickback, and so that we could be on formularies and have preferred status. But I went to a mental health conference about 2 years ago, and the keynote speaker just struck me. He was a fairly young kid for me. He's in his late 20s, and talked about he was traveling the world trying to find himself, and got a call from his mom, and she basically told him, hey, your lifelong friend, your best friend from growing up, he died. And the speaker just talked about things he wanted to do while he was on earth, because what he realizes, nothing is guaranteed. You are not promised tomorrow. And so his take home was, look, if you have something you're passionate about, unless there is something that's preventing you to do it, you absolutely can't do it. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. You should try to do it. So I literally got up, walked out, called my financial planner and said, hey, if I leave 18 months early, can I do that? And he said, yep, you're okay. So then I called the most important person, my wife. I said, honey, David said that I could go. Is it okay if I do this? She goes, if you're passionate about it and he says it's okay, I'm okay with it. And thus started Disruptive Dialogue. And now I've got a platform where I follow leaders like you in the podcast world, try to bring, the inequities of what's happening in healthcare to light, and really and truly focus more on the common person out there, someone who is not employer C-suite or healthcare professional, just, the police officer, the teacher, the garbage man, your neighbor, people who just sit back and they just do what they're told because healthcare is too confusing. And so that is my platform. That is my passion. And that's what I'm doing right now.
I love it. I love your passion. We've talked before. We've planned some follow-up opportunities to share and to interconnect our networks. I'm not naive in being in this industry now for 22 years, podcasting for 17 of those years. I'm not naive to say everything's rosy, and I'm certainly not negative where I'm saying everything's horrible. And I've learned that every single organization that I've worked with in whether it's a sponsorship or we're building content for them, there's always facets of the balance beam of what's in the best interest of our patients and the people that we're supposed to be caring for. And I think of big organizations like Aetna and CVS Healthcare, where they're going through growing pains and transforming out of what they're doing and how PBMs have kind of jacked up our system and our healthcare industry. And when when I meet pharmacists that work for bigger organizations, and maybe some of those organizations have been called out by either the press or a story is broke or something, they got a fine or something. And we talk to pharmacists, a lot of MSLs. Like you said, medical science liaison. There's so many pharmacists now going into the MSL world because of their expertise and in the pharmacological side of things. And they've said, sometimes I feel ashamed of the organization. And I'm like, you shouldn't. You're the balance. You're the one that's bringing light to things to assure that the patient still is the center. And every corporation falls into potential mistakes, and they can either stay in the mistakes and keep making things bad for people that are trying to live their lives and take medications and afford medications and stay adherent on medications. And then there's the good side. And I see the good side of what is happening in healthcare, and how there's politicians that are finally understanding vernacular and terminology and how things are interconnecting, and they're trying to make policy to kind of align. And then you obviously have kickback from many of the lobbyists that are hired to keep their clients' profits at the levels that they are. And then I read books from Gil Bash and the healthcare sickness and what's happening, and John Nosta, who's like a digital philosopher, and people who are seeing it from the outside, who are not, like you said, when you were with your company, you could only do so much. And if you did anything that crossed the line from a legal perspective, you could have lost your position. You could have lost your job. And it's these standards that are like, well, who are we protecting? Are we protecting the stock or the price? And are we protecting the profits, or are we protecting the patient? And I know from watching the world of healthcare for this long, that there's a balance, and we can stay balanced, and you can still make gobs of money, and you can still be profitable, and you can still do things to be prosperous without running over and burying the families and the patient that are at the center of all this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, and it's funny, all the MSLs are what we call medical science liaisons. They're some of my best friends, super smart. I always used to joke that I would go in there when I was a negotiator, and then my MSL, she was the brains of the outfit when we'd go in, because if they wanted to dig down into the clinical piece, that's what she was there for. And, there's so many things. And look, one of the things that I do, and I don't have a sponsor to my podcast. I don't want sponsors to my podcast. I want it to be completely unbiased. I do not protect any aspect. While I was proud to work for, a drug manufacturer at the time, because quite honestly, we researched and created and brought to market life-changing medications that changed how people live. And actually, if you talk about oncology or saving lives, but to your point, we're in a capitalist system, and they're going to try and make money. They're not perfect. We have, evergreening, patent thickets, all kinds of games that they play. They're, as I like to say, don't hate the player, hate the game. So, you want to fix that, then fix it. But at the end of the day, I do think that drug manufacturers, if you want to look at the lesser of evils, they're one of the lesser ones, because number one, they actually make something. Yeah. And they have to invest in it, and they take a risk and all those kind of things. Number two, I do believe, because it was part of my job, which was trying and enact legislation, like trying to get rid of a lot of utilization management, the gimmicks that are played, getting rid of gag clauses in pharmacy contracts, PBM reform, enhanced transparency, 340B reform. I mean, there's a lot of things that, at the end of the day, personally, I think we need to scrap the whole system. I think the challenge that we've run into is, since the early 70s, we have been enacting state and federal laws, rules, and regulations almost in a patchwork system. Healthcare is now a quilt with hundreds of different programs and thousands of benefit designs. It is just way too complicated. And I think that works to the advantage of organizations that prefer complexity, prefer opaqueness and lack of transparency, because they're able to hide money. And at the end of the day, the C-suite, look, I don't care what it is. Almost any organization I've worked with, whether it's the pharmacist at CVS, whether it's the person on the other end of the table that I was negotiating for one of the Blues, or even hospital, employees that I go and I work with, and physicians and nurses and pharmacists, they're all doing the right thing. They're all doing what they're told. They are delivering healthcare and they are focused on the patient. But man, when you get into the upper level management, especially if it's a publicly traded company, their fiduciary duty is to the shareholder, and that is their bottom line. And they are so far away from the patient, they absolutely lose that perspective. And I don't know how we get that back, but I know a lot of us are fighting for it.
You're fighting for it for sure, on the website that we're mentioning. And if you're listening, you're not watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or something, just listen. We'll have a link into the show notes, but it's disruptivedialogue.org. And here you have a take actions section, which lists to contact legislators. You're even giving glossary of terms, which is wonderful because there's too many alphabet soups out there. Sample letters on issues. Can you take our listeners through how this helps patients, families, healthcare providers, even listeners? We have listeners who have supported people like Bill Schmitnick, who lost his son to the most bullshit situation where his son went into the pharmacy, big box pharmacy, obviously process driven, asked for his inhaler. The cost went up from $60 or $80 the whole way up to like $600. He's like, I don't have it. I have to pay rent this month. They're like, well, we don't know what to do. He walks out and he passes away within 48 hours because of an attack he had, which is horrific. If he would have went to an independent, by the way, just as a side note, they would have given him the inhaler, and then they would have found out how to straighten it out on Monday instead of it being the situation. But those are the kinds of people I want to push to your site. But talk to our listeners about this site and what opportunities they have to use it to make change and to do something.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I have found is that, I used to talk to physicians in my last role at Johnson & Johnson, and docs are burning out, pharmacists are burning out. And studies have shown that if healthcare professionals actually get involved in advocacy, it helps with burnout, because it makes them feel like they're not helpless, that they might make a difference, that there is hope. And so, quite honestly, when I started this endeavor, I took a couple pages from the Johnson & Johnson book. And, I used to train people that came into our department how to be an advocate. How do you do this? Other things that we had, at the end of the day, we are all really busy. And if you don't make something fairly easy and accessible, people usually aren't going to get around to it. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I do, unfortunately, I don't have my phone on me, but it's easy. You can just Google it. It's easy. But if you go to Google and say, give me the Washington, D.C. switchboard, it'll give you the phone number to the D.C. switchboard. After every one of my podcasts, I give that number out. And I tell people, you can call that phone number right now, and you can ask for your senator or your House of Representative, and you can tell them, I need you to fix the insurance companies or the PBMs. It's hurting me, and I am a constituent of yours. That's all it takes. Advocacy is not hard. And I'm sure you know this, Todd. Legislators, they'll be going around all day, and then they'll come and they'll see their staff and they go, what's hot today? Mm-hmm. Did we get any emails? Did we get any letters? Did we get any phone calls? It matters. Another thing that I have on the site, there is a section for how to be an advocate. You could read that. But people are like, well, maybe I just want to send an email. Well, I have emails and they're templates. And basically it says, if you want to send an email on prior authorization form, on step therapy, on copay accumulators, different type of issues that we all run into every day that hurts patient care and patient access, you can take it right off of there. What do they call it? You can Joe Biden me all day long, man. I don't mind that. That's fine. But, I do think that as healthcare professionals, it's our job to get the information out there. It's our job to also provide the tools. If we're going to ask people to take time out of their busy day to help not just them, but us, we need to make it as easy as possible. And so that's what we're trying to do.
What about the whistleblower side of all of this? There's two kinds. There's the whistleblower that will give their name, and then there's the one that wants to keep their job because they're scared that they're going to lose their job. They're scared of being sued. Do you have any kind of funnel or kind of system that they're like, hey, listen, if you want to tell a story and you want your name involved, great, fill this out. If you don't, fill this out, and we'll keep you, hidden from it all. But do you have anything like that?
So I don't. What I do is there's on my site, it says how you can get in touch with me, whether through my email or you send me something on LinkedIn. People ask me, are you a whistleblower? I'm like, not really. I mean, I'm not doing any whistleblowing on J&J. I would say I'm whistleblowing on the entire industry. Unlike a Wendell Potter who used to work for, big insurance as a PR guy. And he used to talk about, and he still does, about the bad things that they do. But I don't have anything that says, you want to whistleblow, but I do have a lot of people starting to reach out to me going, I have a story I'd like to share. And a lot of those are patients. I will say I've got quite a few nurses and some of my old physicians that I used to work with. I've had a lot of them on as guests. I've had a gentleman, Dr. Seth Glickman. He used to run health plan in Virginia as a medical director of their CMO. And he was a medical director at Intermountain Health in Utah. He came on and he talked about all the stuff that he used to do and how the C-suites, they just lose touch. And it was interesting talking to him because he actually got sick and called his carrier after he had left and he was independent. And they gave him the list of doctors. He goes, Chuck, they gave me a ghost network. I had to make like 12 phone calls to find a doctor. And he's like, and I'm someone that knows the system. So I just sit back sometimes and it breaks my heart to think about a little old man or a little old lady or someone who has a single parent with 4 kids and they're struggling and they get an illness or they have a sick kid and they don't know what to do. And they get a bill. Yep. And the bill's outrageous and they don't know what to do. And it's just, it makes me sick. And so like you, I'm going to scream from the mountaintops. Actually, my wife is making me get involved with social media. And even I think she's going to make me do some TikTok. She's like my business manager and I hate social media, but she's like, you can scream into the void and no one hears you, or you can expand your audience and say, okay, I will try. So, you got to play the game, I guess.
Well, speaking of social media, that has become one of the biggest ways of getting things changed. And it didn't used to be like that. I remember, I don't want to sound like the old guy, but back in I was working in the realm of healthcare before the website even was as popular as it has become. But Dr. Will Flannery, who's known as Dr. Glocka McFlecken, is one of the most powerful social media personalities. I want our listeners to take a listen to this.
And I am not leaving until somebody comes up with a plan to break up vertical integration in healthcare. Now, this might take weeks or months or...
I have a plan for that.
Senator Warren, wow, that was quick. What's your plan?
I have a bill with Senator Josh Hawley, and it would break up these giant healthcare corporations that are driving up the cost of healthcare for everybody in our country.
That sounds amazing. I thought it would take longer. I guess I should just leave now?
Well, do you want me to show you the gift shop first?
Yes, please. Hey, everybody.
I just love him. I think he's just a gift. He's hilarious. He actually has a podcast with his wife that they're kind of working on, but he really started out just using social media as a way to get frustration off of what he was experiencing. But now it's become his business where he's starting to pull away from his primary work in ophthalmology, and now he's really getting into terminology, understanding the insides of the system, and these big gargantuan healthcare gods that control the insurance worlds, that control everything that absolutely shouldn't. They hate him, not necessarily personally, but they certainly hate his platform because he's getting so much attention that now he has the senators who are reaching out to him and saying, we want to work with you because we know that social media gets the attention of the public. It educates the public, especially when you're doing it the right way. And it's moving the needle.
Yeah. And how do you say his name? Because I used to call him Dr. Glockenflocken. I don't think that's
Dr.
correct.
Glockaflecken. Yeah.
Glockenflocken. So what you showed with him with Elizabeth Warren, he actually has, and it just hit TikTok last night, and I listened to it because my wife loves him. It's a conversation between her and him, and he is posing as an insurer, a PBM, a pharmacist, etc. And it is absolutely hysterical. So your listeners should listen to him. And he has a tremendous story. I heard him speak at a conference one time, but it was really funny. He during the conference, he said, he had a skit about United Healthcare, and it was just absolutely hilarious. And he said that he got a call that United Healthcare, basically the CEO heard it and said, I want him off. I want that stopped. And his response was, apparently he doesn't know how the internet works. So, he is making a difference, and he does it in a very entertaining way. And as you say, a very impactful way. We're blessed to have him.
So we do an awards program every year for the pharmacy industry called the Pharmacy 50. And what we do is we leave it up to the industry to vote. So it's peer reviewed, it's peer voted, votes. And whoever you think is really innovating, and it exploded this year. With the 2025 awards, we had an increase in votes. We went from 3,000 votes the last year. We're over 6,800 votes, this last year. And six of the top 50 were social media influencers. And that just shows you that I don't want to add another social platform on our services that we help with our clients' exposure, but goodness gracious, it's the way that the public consumes information. And unfortunately, human beings, you and I can remember, having to go to our TV sets, and we had maybe 4 or 5 stations, and and you had to watch it at 8 o'clock at night, Buck Rogers or Dukes of Hazzard or something. And now it's like the attention span is so short. So these small platforms that are doing 30-second, 60-second clips are gaining so much attention. And if it's done right, it can really become a catalyst of education to get the public to say, that sucks, or I didn't know that, or if you said PBM 5 years ago, people are like, what the hell is a PBM? Now, if you say PBM, even on like Facebook, I've noticed people are like, oh, that's an insurance component of the pharmacy land. And we're like, exactly. That's who controls your money so that your drugs get paid for. And it's just helping to unravel. Mark Cuban's helping to unravel. It's the culture that's finally helping to unravel, where we're like, no more are we standing waiting for an insurance company to deny access to coverage or deny access to a medication. And the only reason that they're denying it is because it's part of their algorithm to deny it, so that they're trying to basically say, we hope you give up. We've denied the claim. We hope you give up. We hope you won't follow up with this. And if you do follow up with it, then of course, most of the time you can win. But it's education. So yeah, I'm on your wife's side, where you're going to have to do a little bit more TikTok.
Usually everyone's on my wife's side, so I'm used to it, and that's fine. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that people get overwhelmed, to your point, is that with utilization management and now AI and the denials, the bad news about that is the denial rate. It's in the millions, how many denials they do every year, the insurers and the PBMs. And the appeal rate, unfortunately, is less than 1%. Now, that being said, the success, if you appeal, is usually close to 80%. So people just need to start to appeal, and don't let them beat you down. yes, it's a pain, but your health is worth it, and you need to do it. But yeah, I'll be. I'm not sure I'll be a social media maniac, Dr. Glockenficken, but I'm definitely. My friends want me to be Fireball Chuck because I like Fireball. So if you see me with a little cap on with a little fire coming out of my hair, I have gone to the dark side.
That's wild. My favorite cousin, who's more like a brother to me, Chuck Montleone, his favorite drink is Fireball. So maybe it's something about the Chucks.
There you go. There you go. We're kind of crazy. That's what I hear.
Hey, the website is disruptivedialogue.org. Once again, that's disruptivedialogue.org. I want you to reach out to Chuck. I want you to say hello. Let him know that you heard him on This Week in Pharmacy. Chuck, you have to promise me that you're going to come back. Maybe, bring a guest of someone that we can unravel and demystify aspects of healthcare. And I want to let you know to our listeners, and I want to let Chuck know you are encouraged to use this platform and ask for access to anybody in pediatrics or geriatrics or drug development, anybody that we can connect you with or get more information, even for your podcast. I'm on your side. I'm on your team. So thank you for being on TWIRx today.
Thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate the time. And you know what? Let's all just keep fighting the fight. I think we'll make a difference, and it's worth it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll be right back. We'll be right back with more TWIRx. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Pharmacy. We have a special guest that just stopped by the studio, the virtual studio. I'm excited to have you here, Bruce Kneeland. It's good to have you on TWIRx.
Hey, Todd, it's great to be here, and I'm anxious to hear what you're going to ask me. So I've got no script, and we'll just kind of chat off our experience in the past. So let's go. Yeah,
when I win that $300 million Powerball, I'm going to do a couple things. But one of the things I'm going to do is put you on the road permanently with the most luxurious, laid out, traveling office, studio, bedroom, living room, and a driver, by the way. We'll get you a driver, and we'll just take the pharmacy roadshow everywhere. But you kind of did a mini roadshow, and that's why I'm interested in having you here. You were at the Atrium X, which the first time that conference happened last year, we got to attend, and it's the conference on the fly / mastermind. And I just wanted to, since you were there covering it through Dispense Times, which is one of our partnering publications that we very much appreciate, tell us a little bit about that conference, the experience.
Well, I mean, just a couple things. It was a delight to be there, a genuine delight. Nicolette Matthey is got a magnetic personality, and she's created a little consulting business on steroids that's kind of fascinating. And I've seen and heard her on LinkedIn and her videos and that kind of stuff, and become an admirer. So it was fun to get to this meeting. And it's a boutique meeting. I think they had about 220, 230 people, and close-knit, very, very interactive, and it was just a fun place to be. And it's a great meeting. I would, encourage your listeners to at least investigate it, and we'll get in a little more detail. It's kind of special. It's not for everybody. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute.
Yeah, I really like the anyone and someone that understands pharmacy even better. I like these people, these innovators who are changing the conference from what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 40 years ago. And you could attest that the conference in the pharmacy space and I hope the associations are listening to me, because I've attended the conferences that will rock your socks, like HLTH and Vive and all these conferences that are outside of pharmacy industry, that are doing things much differently, who are engaging the audience more on the fly, who have stages in multiple places that are within the conference hall, so that while you're talking to a vendor, you can walk right over to a stage that's basically surrounded by food tables and drinks, and listen to kind of an impromptu discussion on digital health or something. And I just think we need to break the conference model from what I entered pharmacy 2004, and the conferences in that 20 years, 22 years have not changed. So it's a shout out to all the associations. It's a shout out to, NCPA, for example, who has the Super Bowl of community pharmacy, independent community pharmacy, that it's time to change the conference. It's time to make it a little bit more engaging. And another thing, Bruce, is there were digital walls at HLTH all over the place. And these walls were 12 feet by 12 feet, huge digital walls. And they would encourage you to interact on social media on the fly live by posting content about the event. And it was almost like they were making the audience, they were making the attendee an immediate advertiser of what was happening in the conference, which does two things. Number one, it engages your attendees to be involved with a hashtag or whatever.
Yeah.
Two, think about the content that just flows out of that conference as it's happening, which is saying to everybody that's looking at the Instagram or the Twitter or the LinkedIn, they're saying, boy, I should have been there.
That's fascinating, and I know nothing of the health conference, so that's I'm going to watch for that. But to your point about breaking the model, the Atrium-X conference is taking some bold steps in that direction, and it was these two things that most intrigued me about getting an opportunity to go there. So, the first broad stroke is they like to market this meeting as the unconference.
Right.
And part of what that means is that they are not doing the standard, 4 or 5 people sit down in a room and say, we're going to do a meeting in 8 months, what's the theme, or what are we going to do? And then they stretch themselves with all the contacts they know, all the people they know, and they come up and invite speakers and create an agenda. So when you go there, at 8 o'clock, you're going to listen to Harry Bonzell, and 10:30, you're going to listen to Steve Jobs, or, whatever it may be. With Nicolette in this meeting, they had almost no speakers. And the idea is you come trusting that good stuff will happen. And one of the first things they do is they get everybody in a room, vendors and pharmacy owners and pharmacy staff. And I loved how they include the vendors. And they just hand out big sticky notes, and they ask you to write down 3, 4, or 5 topics you want to pursue at the meeting. Mm-hmm. Then they collect those and kind of organize them into groups, and then decide, okay, 37 people wanted to talk about AI, 25 people wanted to talk about peptides, and so they set up sessions where you could go to that session if that was a topic you wanted to talk about. And in a room with 20 to 30 people, you would talk about this for 90 minutes. And there was no speaker, no PowerPoint presentation. And what I loved was, Harry would make some comment and Jill would challenge him or amplify it, and then John would say, well, I tried that and this is what I found out. And, the one of the sessions that was most intriguing to me was on social media, how to profitably use social media. And, I learned an awful lot of things about that I'm not a social media guru by all, but, these guys were talking about, hey, I did this and I got kicked off Facebook for 3 months and, and you got to be careful about this, that, or whatever. It was detailed stuff. And then in the environment, the one that impressed me the most was, people, it wasn't a CE session, so people could talk about vendors that they used or liked and or vendors that they used who they thought screwed them. So it was down and dirty.
That's interesting, and I think it has its place, and I think it's a wonderful use of the more aggressive pharmacy owners' time, where they can kind of mastermind with other high-level performers that are doing things out of the ordinary for their communities. And yeah, I'd like to see more of it. Maybe maybe one of the big national conferences will build sessions that collect operators together.
It would be easy enough to do, and the big abandonment is CE. I mean, I've been planning pharmacy meetings for 40 years, and you always had to have CE. But they canned CE completely, and you get down and dirty, and people say good or bad things about the vendors. It's very socially appropriate stuff. There was no bad mouthing, but it was well done.
Yeah, it's tough love. I mean, the vendors that are in our industry, including myself, have to pay attention to their audience, their clients, their consumers, and make the pivots and adjustments that are demanded based on the value that they deliver. And I've seen that happen real time. I've worked with several pharmacy software vendors that immediately responded to the criticism of the group. And it's the best thing in the world. That's free advancement of your product and in product improvement strategies coming right from your. So I always welcome criticism. I'm definitely not afraid of it, and have gotten a lot of it over the years, and I'm sure you have as well.
Well, yeah, and you just mentioned something that will kind of migrate into what I see is coming down the pike that people should watch for. At this meeting, the core product that Nicolette Matthey has is a software as a service product. She calls it DOTTI, D-O-T-T-I. I don't know that stands for anything or not, but she bills it as the first customer relationship management system for pharmacy. And I've been a marketing guy for 25 years in this profession, and I'm a big fan of CRM, and it mystifies me that the pharmacy management system vendors haven't included this concept into their software. Because as pharmacy continues to evolve, marketing is going to become more and more important. And when you say marketing, I'm not talking about advertising. I'm talking about strategic thinking, targeted, selecting the right people to go after, the right message to go after, and just as importantly, inverse, the right new service to bring into your pharmacy. What will your community support? How do you reach or identify those people? And this DOTTI system has done that. And the biggest aha moment I had was with DOTTI, Atrium X and Atrium 24, the parent company, is big into compounding. Mm-hmm. So that's the niche market that they're after. And she just completely redefines, and had to explain it a couple times. We built DOTTI to help you with your customers, and your customers are the prescribers, not your consumers. And that's just another turn things upside down approach to stuff, and figuring out how to get to the right doctor with the right message on the right person. And you pull that together in this customer relationship management system, which the pharmacy vendors could do in a New York minute. It's just a fascinating thing. And I would predict that the pharmacy vendors are going to jump on this CRM idea, and that will be the next new wave. And the paradigm shift that I have preached to these guys is I've told this, all the technology company are, hey, we do things faster, cheaper, we help you save money. But nobody's creating a system that brings you profitable new customers. And, and I think that's a wide open field for some pharmacy vendor to do that. So that's my 2 cents on that product or subject.
I agree. I think that the pharmacy management system needs to bring in a client relationship management, a patient relationship management system. And the first sector of our pharmacy industry that took advantage and did build CRM, they don't call it CRM, by the way, Bruce. They actually call it workflow. It is in the specialty space. So the specialty pharmacist knew that a patient was going to require specific things throughout their treatment, and they started proactively reacting to it, which made the patient feel much more trusting of the pharmacy tech on the phone or the pharmacist on the phone, or a lot of telehealth was being used. Or if you did show up at a pharmacy, which was very infrequent in comparison, it's usually with the physician involved, there was an opportunity to ask questions, and it demystified the treatment. And so the future of pharmacy is definitely not just the dispensement, and it will involve CRM, and it will involve, instead of having 600 prescriptions a day times 5, you're going to maybe drop down to 300 prescriptions a day, but each of those patients are going to be so much more profitable because of what you pull out of them when you're doing a med review, when you're doing contraception, when you're doing counseling, when you're doing nutrition testing, when you're doing all of this stuff that would lead to a bigger profit opportunity for individualized medicine, and taking advantage of that buzzword that they always say, that's precision medicine and personalized medicine. Well, stop talking about it and do it, because the independent community pharmacy has every ability to pull those levers and put those packages together for people.
It's a huge opportunity. My mind immediately goes that the corollary to the specialty pharmacy and all that stuff would be drug nutrient depletion.
Yep.
How do you, the idea that when Mrs. Jones walks into the pharmacy and picks up her script, that the POS is going to pop up and say, ask her about CoQ10, the likelihood that she's going to be in the mood and interested to talk about CoQ10 at that point is minimal. But if you prepped her with text and emails and maybe even hard copy mailings, weeks ahead of time, say, Mrs. Jones, just a couple things that you might expect on this medical treatment, that your journey is, there's depletion, and, ask me about what that means and what you can do about it. Or, all these, we call them add-ons or RX to OTC buckling, and that makes it a sales thing. But if we're really thinking for the consumer, the classic example, you go to the hardware store, you're going to paint your bedroom, you buy the paint and you buy the brushes. If the clerk reminds you you're going to need some blue tape to do the edging, that's not sales, that's helping.
Exactly. Bruce, you've been talking about this for years. I encourage everyone that's listening to this podcast, if you have not taken advantage of Bruce Kneeland's ability to extract data and information from subject matter experts, especially for some of your writings and interviews. Shout out to Dispense Times, by the way. Bruce will be having an article that will be coming out and doing some of that review. I also want to give a shout out, Bruce, to the listeners about Pharmacy Crossroads. Once again, the interviews and the extraction of intelligence that Bruce has done through Pharmacy Crossroads is like no other podcast in the independent pharmacy community space. I think this is the best podcast. I'm very biased, Bruce, in the community pharmacy space, but just came out with an episode. The title was Why Taking Fuller Advantage of Technology You Already Own Could Be Your Most Profitable Strategy. You've done so many of these over the years. We absolutely love working with you on Pharmacy Crossroads. But yeah, do you have any ideas of anything coming up on Pharmacy Crossroads you want to share?
I'm hoping to get a testing company, retail take-home test kits. And we're talking about how we can turn a pharmacy into a headquarters for testing issues and coupling it with special orders. So you don't need to stock them. You need to advise people, have conversations. You order them and you get them from your wholesaler, and person can come in and pick them up tomorrow or you deliver them. So it'll be fascinating. Cross my fingers that I'm going to get this guy to pull the trigger. It'll be I'm in love with the subject.
All right, Bruce Kneeland, Pharmacy Crossroads. Thanks so much for being on TWIRx. We appreciate you.
Yep. Take care.